purpose of this video is to practice the WIS WIM protocol for analyzing or interpreting a graph. So this is WIS WIM, something that we talked about together in class. So if you look at your graphing notes packet, the steps, the first step to analyzing a graph, to trying to understand what is on that graph, what that graph is saying, is to identify. So that is the WIS, W-I-S part of WIS WIM, or what I see. So when you identify a graph, you're going to look for 3 or 4 different spots where the graph is changing in some way, where there is a trend. The data is changing somehow. Or maybe points where there's differences on the graph. Okay. When you do this, you are going to want to choose or create comments that go with what I see. These should be simple comments about what you see on the graph. Do not explain any meaning, just what you see. So for example, here's a graph showing the average monthly temperature in one US city. The first thing you're going to do is choose 3 spots on the graph. So you can see I've drawn 3 arrows here, and these arrows are showing changes on the graph. So right here you can see a change where on this line graph, you see the line going up. Here, the second arrow is pointing to the top part of the graph. Okay, it's the peak of that. And then this third arrow is pointing to where the line is going down. Okay, the first thing you would do is draw those arrows. After that, you are going to write these what I see statements. So I've created 3 what I see boxes connected to each arrow. And notice that the statement that I've written talks just about what is happening to the line. So what I see in this first line, an upward slope between February and July. We can see an upward slope of the line, okay, a positive slope. What I see for this part of the graph, a peak in July, the highest point. What I see for the last part of the graph, the downward slope between July and December. Notice I'm not talking about the temperature. I'm just talking about what's happening to the line. That's what you want to write in this what I see statement. Step number 2, what it means. You interpret the graph. Now this is when you can talk about the different parts of the graph and what they might mean. Okay? So you want to write a what I see statement for each part of your what I mean comments. Okay? Don't try to interpret the whole thing as a whole, just try to interpret the one little spot. What does it mean? So here's what that looks like. These are what I mean statements for each of the old what I see statements. So here we said I see that the slope increases from February to July. What it means is the average temperature increased from February to July. So we're interpreting what the graph's saying. We're seeing this temperature increasing. The top spot there, we said this was the peak in July. What it means, the hottest temperature happens in July. And then finally, we said we saw a negative slope or a downward slope at the end. So what it means, the average temperature decreased from July to December. We're going to try doing this on your own now, just practicing the WHIZ and the WHIM. So if you turn the page in your packet, you're going to see a graph like this. What I would like you to do is fill out the WHIZ WIM boxes for 3 different spots in the graph. Draw an arrow for each box to 3 different spots on the graph where you see a change or a trend happening in the data. Okay. Then I would like you to draw a what I see, a WHIZ statement, and then a what it means, a WHIM statement. Remember, when you draw the what I see, it should just talk about what's happening to the line. Pause your video now and write that on your notes. Okay, you should have come back from your video, or you come back from your pause, and now you've written this out on your notes. So you can see I've drawn to 3 different spots right here. You can see I drew to a spot where there's a difference in the blue and the red line right here. You can see a spot where both the blue and the red line are on the bottom here. And then you can see a spot where both the blue and the red line are going up. This is a double line graph, meaning there's two things happening with the line in this graph. So for the what I see statement, I said the temperature, or the Chicago line, the blue line, has a positive slope or increase, and the New York line has a negative slope or a decrease. What it means, the average snowfall rate in Chicago increased from January to March, while it decreased in New York from January to March. Then I went to the flat line here. The what I see statement is the line is flat, so there's no slope from April to October for both New York and Chicago. What it means, there is no snowfall from April to October in both New York and Chicago. Okay. The last one here, these two lines that were going up, the what I see is the Chicago and New York lines both have a positive slope or an increasing slope. What it means, the average snowfall rate in both Chicago and New York increases from October to December. And that's how you would do the what I see, what it means, the WIS WIM. Later in class, we're going to practice turning this into a paragraph, okay, so we can better interpret this graph. If there's anything that you're still confused about, go back and watch the earlier parts of the video again. Otherwise, we'll see you back in class.